Welcome to the Brandwise podcast, where we talk about the big branding moves that business owners are making and the why behind it. I'm your host, Jess Freeman, here to help you be wise and be bold. Today's guest is Serena Shoup, a corporate CPA turned bookkeeping business CEO, mentor for other bookkeepers and accountants, and mom of 3. Serena is probably one of our biggest rebrand stories so far, as she did a total name change, services change, and everything. And as we're talking about how many things go into the rebrand process, I want to remind you there is a rebrand checklist you can access in the show notes, so you can make sure to get every little detail when you rebrand. But without further ado, let's dive in. Hey, Serena, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. To get us started, what is your brand all about?
Yeah, so my brand is, of course, financial, and I'm an accounting firm for online businesses, mostly course creators. So that's kind of the the idea behind the name, which we'll probably get into. And yeah, we're all about empowering online business owners to understand their numbers so that they can grow their numbers and have a bigger impact. So it's that ripple effect thing.
Nice. Okay, so I do want to talk about the name.
Okay.
And that's part of the rebrand, because you did change your business name also. And I've mentioned this in other episodes that rebranding looks different to everyone. Sometimes it is a name change. Sometimes it's just visuals or messaging. Like it can look a lot of different ways. And you are one that also changed your name. So I would love to hear, one, what the business name was before, and then 2, why you chose this name.
Okay. So I actually have 2 iterations.
Okay, great.
So this one's a fun one. When I first started my business, I had left corporate. I have a CPA license. But I was a corporate CPA, which means I worked in industry. I worked in a variety of different companies. Most of them were public or going public, so they had larger accounting departments, and that's where I worked. And so my specialization is not in tax, it's in just monthly finance and accounting. And I'm prefacing that because when I went out on my own, I started freelancing, and I was like, well, I have a CPA license, so I'm just going to tag that at the end. My business name is just going to be Serena Shoup, CPA. I'm going to tag that at the end of my business, which also opened up almost a can of worms, where it's like, when you start holding yourself out as a CPA like that, you have to register your firm with the Board of Accountancy and all these things. There's different rules on the type of entity you can be. And I didn't really I thought all that through, and I was okay with it because I really wanted to be, that CPA and have a CPA firm. However, what ended up happening is people were coming to me just seeking out tax. But because that wasn't my background, I just really wasn't confident that I was going to be able to do a great job. And so I ended up attracting a lot of people that came to me because the CPA designation. I quickly realized that was not fun for me. And just the stress level of having to deal with taxes at year end, I was like, I don't want to do this ever again. So I need to figure this out. So during that, I also was bringing on lots of small business clients, and I was starting to hire. So I had a teammate that was helping me do the bookkeeping. And I sat down with her one day and was like, hey, let's figure out which clients of ours are our favorite, and figure out why and what the commonality is among them, because I want to get more clients like those. So that's kind of what opened up the whole rebrand situation, plus me not wanting to do tax and attracting the wrong people. So we sat down, evaluated our client list. There was maybe 10 or 15 clients at that point. And we kind of just went through each one and was like, okay, what do we like about this client? What don't we like? And then we figured out that all the clients we loved working with were all in one software, which is, we use Xero, not QuickBooks. So all the clients we loved working in were in Xero because it just made the work easier and we enjoyed it more. And they all were some sort of online business, like working virtually. There was a different mindset involved with the business owners, and most of them were female. So that's kind of how we figured out, like, okay, let's go all in on this industry and figure out a name that aligns with the industry of the folks that we want to attract. So that's how the first name, of course, bookkeeping, was born. And I went back and forth with like using bookkeeping in the name of the firm, but I was like, I just need to make a decision and do it and do the rebrand. We did a new logo and all of that, new color, somewhat new colors, not we still kind of kept the colors I had done with my original branding. A couple years into that, I realized that I just wanted to kind of expand the idea around the brand of not just attracting people who think they only need bookkeeping, although that was working, like, because we would get people, and then once they onboarded, we would find other areas where we could help them in when it came to finance and on a deeper level, like paying themselves consistently, saving for taxes, just doing a little more advisory work on strategy and operations, because your numbers illuminate the picture of what's happening in your business. But if you like don't do anything with that information, it's kind of like it felt like a waste. So I still would include all of that in my packages, but the brand name didn't really reflect everything that we are capable of doing. Plus, I wanted to keep it open-ended for in the future, as I do plan at some point perhaps to sell my business. So I've been operating it as a way of like, I'm fairly removed. So if I ever wanted to, I could sell it. And I wanted to make it attractive for a buyer in the name, in the brand, right? So not having my name in the brand name anymore was number one. But number two, changing to, of course, financial, allows it to be like, okay, it's an accounting firm and consultancy, basically advisory. And if someone were to buy it, or maybe in the future I expand and hire a tax manager, we can have that under the umbrella as well. So there's a lot of like forward-looking decisions that roll into rebranding. So that's where we are now. We are, of course, financial. That technically, like logistically, because sometimes people are like, okay, well, what is really involved in a rebrand if it's a name change? The initial rebrand that I did, I formed an LLC because before that I wasn't. I was just operating as a sole proprietor. And then, so the LLC's name is, of course, Bookkeeping LLC. When I rebranded to, of course, Financial, we just tacked on a DBA. So technically, business is still, of course, Bookkeeping LLC. So that's how it works out logistically, if anyone's curious.
Which is that's a good thing to mention, because you're not the only person. I see so many people who, if you look in their, like, sometimes it's in the footer of their website, sometimes it's in the footer of their newsletter. And then sometimes I see it, like, if I purchase like a digital product or sign up for a workshop.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm paying, of course, Financial. And then like the little thing I've bought or signed up for, the receipt is like just something completely different.
Yeah.
And I know, because I've been in business for so long, I'm like, oh, they just like rebranded, but instead of having to redo everything, just did the DBA portion.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a helpful little tip for those who are rebranding and like going also with the name change. Because I know that might be something that keeps people from rebranding, because they're like, oh my gosh, what do I have to do with that?
Yeah. And it can be complicated. There's a lot of steps, and it kind of just like, that was one of the things I was going to talk about too, is like, it takes a while for all of that change to happen. So it's not as easy as just doing like a flip of a switch, which I'd been through rebrands in corporate on like a much bigger scale. And so I already kind of knew, like, it takes, like, we had to send a letter to all the vendors preparing them that they're, our checks are going to look different. The business name is different. All of our customers, their logos changing, and all that stuff that you have to lay the groundwork for. is a little easier in a smaller business, but there's all these things that trickle in later on that you're like, oh, I gotta update that. I've gotta update
Mm-hmm.
this. And like I'm still finding things that we need to update.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot. There's a lot. And that's something that several people have mentioned here on the podcast is like, it might take me a year to get through
Mhm.
all the pieces. And you're like, oh, I forgot to change the colors in there. And I forgot to change the colors over there. And, all those kinds of things. I love that you like just the story of, the journey through all this transition and the rebrand and that you were focusing on who do I love to serve and how can I appeal more to them? And really focusing also on like what you like to do because I feel like sometimes, especially newer business owners, we forget that we're in business to do things we love. And so I don't know how often I have to remind my clients. Like we'll be on a call mapping out their website and I'm like, "Okay, so we need a page for this offer." And they're like, "Yeah, I don't know how I feel about X, Y, and Z offer." And I'm like, "Well, and basically they say, "I don't like this offer, but people want it." And I'm like, "It's your business though, and you get to choose what you want to do." And so whether that's getting rid of offers or, whatever, um, that could be a whole other podcast, but really leaning into who you wanna serve. And I love just kind of the of course and serving course creators, like, I love that kind of play on words isn't the right terminology, but I love that
Yeah,
little
is it a
nod.
pun?
Yeah, or
Or I don't
fun,
know.
yes,
Is
there
that
we go.
technically make it a pun? I like puns.
Yes.
But yeah, it was mainly to be able to appeal, and it's kind of funny because a lot of people it takes them a minute to, like, make that connection, especially if they're not course creators. Not
Right.
all of the clients are, but most of them do have that component.
Mhm.
I remember when I first made the switch, I don't know, a few months later, one of my clients was like, "Oh, I just got
I
it."
got it. Of course, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any part of the old brand that was hard to leave behind, either like mentally, emotionally, or just like I know there's a lot of logistics, but was there any like mental part of it that was difficult?
The part where I like, as much as the CPA designation was making things more difficult for me, there's also a component where sometimes it makes things easier for me. Like,
Mm,
I think it definitely helps me land clients because once I explain to them, I have my CPA license, I am required to do 80 hours of continuing education every 2 years and staying on top of things and go through ethics courses and things like that. Like it, I think it is a thing that stands out. So now I just have to incorporate that conversation more. But I think in the long run, it's better this way. But yeah, that was kind of hard to get rid of because I was like, is it going to be harder to land clients now?
mhm. Yeah. And
There's so much built in trust with the CPA designation that, yeah.
I feel like, doctors or lawyers, like, who also have letters behind their name and
Mhm.
that kind of thing, like, sometimes it's like, "No, I have, like, this sense of pride having this title,"
Yeah.
and, like, was it like, "No, I don't wanna, like, lose that part of me and, like, my work and the work I put in to get to this place?" Like, was that part of it too?
That was kind of part of it, yeah, and like I said, now it's just, like, I still have, like, that in my bio on my website and stuff, so it's still there, people can still see it, but it's not, like, right in your face in the name of
Right.
the company anymore, but
Yeah.
so that was a little bit hard to let go of, but at the same time, the other switch we made by taking my name completely out of it too was that I have a team and I wanted, and to eventually sell, you don't want it to be your own name.
Right. That makes it a little more difficult. What was maybe one of the biggest challenges during the rebrand?
One of the bigger challenges I think was doing the logo was kind of hard because it was like, how do we incorporate some visual aspect that's going to resonate with like the online course industry because I didn't want like something that was typical like course icon. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like a
Mm-hmm.
computer or a book or a graduation cap or something like that. So that was really hard. And then also finding something that would resonate with the industry, but also like had some sort of like personal meaning too. And I know that's not like necessary, but my first logo with my name, I had mountains kind of behind my name. And I live in the mountains. I grew up in the mountains. I love the mountains. I was very attached to that part of it too. And so that was a little hard to let go of. But yeah, so what we ended up going with, and that it took some time and like research with the person that helped me do the rebrand. And we kind of went through like, okay, like what kind of image do we want to have like for if we need to have like a little icon or whatever instead of just the company initials. And so we incorporated an owl, which I love owls. Like I think they're so cool and what they signify is like wisdom and
Mm-hmm.
learning stuff too. So I was like, okay, I like this. It's got like the animal aspect and nature and the symbolism of the animal. It works. So there's no graduation cap on the owl. And then also things feel like so permanent and scary when you go through the rebrand that you're like you second guess all these decisions you're making. I'm like, do I still like these colors? And like, do I still like the owl? Like, I don't know. But yeah, the owl thing too is like something that I'm not one of those people that like collects trinkets or anything, but I'm always drawn to like little owl figurines.
Mm.
I don't buy them. People don't gift them to me.
I really actually like that you brought this in because I, as a brand designer, I try to avoid those very obvious
Mhm.
images. What am I trying to say?
Yeah.
Those visuals that
Yeah.
are like, oh, I sell hamburgers. We're a hamburger joint. Here is a picture of a hamburger in our logo. You do not have to have a visual representation of what you do in your logo. I'm curious that you have this owl in your logo. Do you treat it like it's almost like a mascot in your business? Like, because I know, and it's totally fine. I know of some business owners that I'm thinking of right now that they kind of have a mascot in their business.
No, but now I'm like, how can I incorporate this? Can you give me an example of like one of their mascots?
I saw one the other day, and it was like they have a Zapier
Mhm.
automation that when I think it's like make a sale or someone inquires, and this is obviously very internal, not client
Right.
facing, but their mascot will Slack message them and be like, "Congrats, Serena, you made a sale."
I have a Zap like that too whenever I have a sale, but now I'm gonna put an owl in it.
Yes, now you need to like name the owl, and then your owl can congratulate you.
Yeah, that's cute.
I feel like I've heard of others who it's like their mascot is sometimes included in the emails, like if there's client onboarding emails, or like, oh, you can email Fred, whatever the mascot's name is, and he will like send us a message and let us know, like whatever.
Okay.
It's like little
That's really
tie-ins. So it's not like
cool. Yeah.
over the top,
Yeah.
but it's just kind of like a fun little
Yeah, to kind of like you're almost humanizing, or is that the word?
Mhm.
The robotic
Yes.
tasks that are happening
Mhm.
in the background, which I kind of like. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so how has the rebrand impacted your business?
I would say it gave me a lot of confidence once I rebranded. Um, one, taking my name out of the business, and um, and two, like seeing it as it's like because of taking the name out of the business and then seeing it as its own entity, and building the team behind it, it gave me more confidence to really talk about the team behind the company. And with that, like when I go onto sales calls, I'm less likely to underprice things because I'm like, I know the value that the whole team brings. And also I have to pay them. So if I underprice, I will screw myself over. But so it really built confidence around that whole piece of being like, hey, it's not just me. But yeah, it gave me a lot of confidence to really embrace that I wasn't the only person behind the brand. It's a whole team. So that was probably like one of the best things that came out of it.
Yeah, like helping you step into more of that CEO
Yeah.
role and not just Serena, the CPA.
Yeah.
To wrap up, what advice do you have for someone who is thinking about rebranding?
I would say, like, if you're thinking about rebranding, really kind of figure out what you want to get out of it. If it's just like a lot of people get the shiny object syndrome, right? Where they're like, I just want to refresh my website and make everything prettier. We can totally get sucked into that. But like, is it really going to move the needle and make the changes or help you make the changes that you're wanting to make within your business? Like, I wouldn't have rebranded if all of those like things weren't there, right? I have
Mhm.
zero desire to rebrand just for a prettier website, although that's a nice idea, but that's a very expensive idea. If you're not like, you've got to figure out what is this actually going to do to move the business forward or get me out of the day to day. Like if you're a personal brand and you're like, I have a team working behind me, but like nobody understands it. If that's the confidence level that you need, or you're planning on selling, there should be some bigger reason besides just a prettier website, basically, is what I'm getting
Mhm.
at.
Yes, even as a website designer, yes, and amen.
Yeah.
Like, you can always get a new website and, like, you're just gonna be stuck in this constant evolution
Yeah.
of, like, "Oh, I want something prettier again. I want something prettier again." And, I mean, sure, like, you could give me those projects, that's fine,
Yeah.
but that's not really serving your business, and you're just gonna be stuck in this constant
Yeah.
loop of, like, finding the next pretty thing,
Yeah.
and that's not
The other
smart.
thing that happens with that is you lack like brand continuity and
Oh,
recognition.
yes.
So if you've done a lot of work to build up your brand recognition and then you're constantly like changing your logo and changing your colors and your website's constantly changing, like you might lose some trust because people might be
Mhm.
like, she's flaky.
Yeah, like, "What is happening here?"
Yeah.
Or we all know those people that you're like, "What are they offering now?"
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. So,
"What is it? Wait, now you do this? Like, I'm not really sure." Like, that is part of the brand that we need to also think
yeah,
about. So I'm glad you mentioned
absolutely.
that. Well, thank you so much for this
Thank you. It's
conversation.
fun.
Where can we, connect with you
Yeah.
online?
I am on LinkedIn at Serena Shoup, and I'm also on Instagram, of course, bookkeeping. I have not changed that handle. And yeah, that's probably the best place to reach me, to be honest. I'm happy to chat in the DMs if anyone has any questions about my rebrand or accounting or anything.
Yes, okay. Well, I will link to those in the show notes so y'all can go connect with Serena, but thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you.
If today's branding story inspired you and you're ready to start your own rebrand adventure, head over to justcreatives.com/rebrand to explore how we can work together on your brand. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to leave a review or share it on Instagram and tune in next week for another episode.